Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CayVin Universe. Thank you for joining us here today on the show. It is hot as hell today. Of course, I'm Vinny Vasquez, joined here by the lovely Caylin.
Hello, everyone. If you are new to the show, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below to get to know us a little bit better. And if you are returning to the show, welcome back. And don't forget to follow us on social media if you are not already. That's at CayVin Universe on all platforms.
Oh, yes. And then, of course, we got the Patreon there for if you even want further content. Check out our Patreon. We got our bonus episodes and all our bonus content on there for $1, people. $1, you can get all that bonus content. But today, we had a really awesome conversation, honestly, with a paranormal investigator, right?
Kristy Sumner. She's the founder of Soul Sisters Paranormal. She has her own team. They have visited so many crazy, crazy locations. Of course, she goes about it more in detail in our interview. So, yeah, I'm just really excited for y'all to hear it.
Yeah, and we hope y'all been enjoying our guest episode. Hopefully here pretty soon. We've been thinking about it. We might do a little switcheroo here. Of course, we've just started doing these guest episodes. We will get, I guess more experience with them. But I'm just really happy we're getting to have these types of conversations.
Yes.
But next week we are going to be doing a solo episode.
Yes, we're gonna be back to just me and the Vin.
Yeah, yeah, just as it was next week. For today, please enjoy. This was awesome conversation. Awesome during the conversation, and it was awesome looking back at it.
Yes.
So we hope you guys enjoy. Here's our conversation with Kristy Sumner.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today we have our lovely guest, Kristy Sumner. Kristy, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are y'all?
We're doing good.
doing
We're
great.
excited to have you.
Oh,
I'm
yes, and
excited to be here.
especially talking about all things paranormal as
we
well.
love
So you're a paranormal investigator
Yes.
who founded Soul Sisters Paranormal. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you tell me, or tell the audience
Yeah.
rather, because we were reading up about it, and it's a very interesting how it came together and everything. So can you explain kind of a little bit of
How it started.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Soul Sisters Paranormal was actually started by my twin sister, Jenny, and my younger sister, Michelle, and myself. And we were joined by two female family friends. And it really just started as a girls' trip. My sisters and I, we live in different parts of the country. And so we would routinely get together to go to different cities, do unique things for a girls' weekend. We do it a few times a year. And in 2013, we had the opportunity to go to Moundsville, West Virginia, which is where the West Virginia State Penitentiary is located.
Oh, wow.
And of course, that's one of the most haunted locations in the country. And coincidentally, we had a family member that sat on the board of that facility. And he said, while you're here, why don't you just stay the night in the prison and see if you can communicate with our resident spirits? And so we jumped at that opportunity. We took some cameras, some voice recorders, a very rudimentary investigation. And but we left that experience with what we felt was compelling, unexplainable evidence, i.e. we were hearing footsteps, we were hearing men's voices, doors slamming when there was nobody in a cell block, just some various things that we really wanted to explore further. So after that experience, we decided to form Soul Sisters Paranormal. We had our logo created, our theme music created, came up with a trademark and all of that. And really just kind of at that point went around the country to different historic and reportedly haunted locations to see if we could find out if they were really haunted.
Wow, that sounds so interesting. Like it was just like a spontaneous trip that turned into like, your passion.
Yeah, and something
it
like
really did.
Essentially.
Right, and something like that, like what you basically said you experienced, that would kind of open the door too for wanting to go further, right?
Wanting to, know more and experience more, definitely.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So, and that's really what it was. That first experience in West Virginia, it really opened our eyes to two things. One, historic preservation, and then also two, paranormal and the quest to really want to know more about that. And so that's really what we do. Again, we go to these haunted and historic locations first to tell the historical narrative of those locations, and then couple that with any paranormal evidence that we find or unexplainable evidence that we find.
Wow.
That's actually pretty interesting because you're basically doing it from two aspects.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
you said. Wow.
Yeah. Because for us, the history is really the driving focus. We get to have this very tactile experience with places that a lot of people might not get the opportunity to go to. Lizzie Borden House, the St. Augustine Lighthouse, Villisca Axe Murder House, and to be able to bring that experience to our audience is really what we try to do. We try to give them that historical perspective of things that they might not know about the location, or interesting implants of stories, if you will,
Yeah.
about the narrative that they may not be familiar with. And then we tell them how we do the investigation, and then really what we found that in the moment we couldn't explain. And
Yeah.
it seems that it's a really good formula for us. It might not have all the quick bells and whistles of
Mhm.
of a TikToker or something like that, but
Right.
I think our audience really appreciates the fact that we do a very deep dive into the history and then couple that with the paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and someone like myself, I definitely appreciate that too. And like you were saying, that it dives a little deeper than just like you said, the quick bells and whistles. And
Yeah.
I just love that both aspects, because being love of history and then being interested in the paranormal, that's just like the merging of those. And it's like you said, it's kind of obvious that you should do that too. Was it that first situation that got you interested in the paranormal, or like was there anything else prior to that that really, like, was it a lifelong thing that you just always been interested in?
Yeah, and that's a great question. My sisters and I have always had a fascination with the paranormal. Our parents were very good about letting us really decide our own belief system and belief structure about an afterlife.
Yeah.
We did grow up in a Christian background and a Christian home, and so I do have Christian beliefs, and I will say that I am a Christian. But for us, it was really something that we wanted to delve further into what happens after we die, right? Because it's something we're all going to experience. And
Right.
so, with because all of us do have advanced degrees on the team as well, so we've really had this formula of researching things even before we delve into them. So we were always researching the paranormal, researching afterlife experiences and such, and it really just came together. As I said, with that girls trip, it was just kind of one of those things that we always said, if we had the opportunity to do this, then we would jump on it, and it really did
Yeah.
present itself. And to your point earlier, it really has morphed into something that is all consuming in my life right now.
Yeah. And so, like, besides that, I know you said that the penitentiary is where it all started. Are there any other like main locations that stand out to you that you remember that were, I guess the most haunted?
Oh, absolutely. And I can honestly say that every place that we've investigated has stood out. The interesting thing about paranormal investigations is, while we're using the same techniques for the majority of the time in each of these locations is very distinct and different in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
The history of the St. Augustine Lighthouse is going to be much different than the Lizzie Borden House, which is going to be much different than the West Virginia State Penitentiary. So that's what's really unique about what we do, is because like I said, we get to have these very different historical perspectives and different historical stories, and that really tailors our investigations. So, to your
Yeah.
question, every single investigation that we've done stands out, again, for that historical perspective, but also for the paranormal perspective. As far as the most active location, I would say that the old Gilchrist County Jail in Trenton, Florida, is one that really stands out as being the most active, especially for the size. And by that, I mean, it's a small county jail. It was built in 1928. It was in
Mm-hmm.
operation as a jail until 1968.
Mm-hmm.
It has 4 small cells on the bottom, 4 cells on the second floor, and then there's a small jailer's cottage that sits in the back that's connected via a doorway to
Mm-hmm.
that first level. So it's a very, very small footprint. I mean, there's houses that are bigger than this jail. And
Yeah.
when we first went there, I've investigated it several times, but my first investigation there, it was a collaboration investigation with Miranda Young from Ghost Biker Explorations. She's another paranormal investigator.
Mm-hmm.
So she and I were the only 2 people on this investigation. And when we spoke to the owner about investigating it, we were talking about it, and the area that it is in is not the greatest location.
Mm-hmm.
And so the owner said to us, "Do you both carry? Do you have handguns?" And we're like, "Yes, we do." And she said, "I highly recommend that you keep your guns with you at all times during this investigation, because that's the type of area that we're in." And we said, "Okay, that's fine." So we
Wow.
go into the building, and we both have our handguns on us,
Mm-hmm.
and we set up all of this equipment, and we were in there for about an hour. We weren't feeling anything, we weren't experiencing anything. It was just really kind of stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so Miranda says, "I wonder if they think we're law enforcement because we have our guns on us."
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, why don't we just try taking them off? And I said, that's cool. So I took my gun off and I put it on a cot that was in one of the cells. And as Miranda is taking hers off and putting her gun down, she says, I'm putting this down nice and slowly. And behind us, a disembodied voice says, good. And we both heard it. We picked it up on all the audio. And then after that, the night was on. We captured shadow figures. They were moving on command. All of our equipment alarmed. We were hearing audible disembodied voices. We were picking them up on the recorders. Every piece of equipment alarmed that night. So I would have to say that as far as investigations go, that's one of the most active locations we've investigated.
Oh man!
Wow, that just gave me chills.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
so
just
crazy.
hearing about it, I can imagine being involved in that.
Yeah.
You know, is it or I mean, it must be some kind of like adrenaline rush, right? Or is it just something that like you're like, do you? I know you're fascinated with it, but is there ever points where you feel like kind of nervous or, you know, dare I say scared?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't be in these buildings, you know, especially in the areas that some of them are in, and not feel, you know, a sense of trepidation. But
Right.
it really is something that is fascinating to us. So I can honestly say we've never run out of a place screaming. We've never
Right.
left
Oh,
and said,
okay.
I'm never coming back to that. You know, you do have these moments where you freeze and you really have that fight or flight moment inside of you. But we just kind of stand there and kind of let it pass, and then we continue on. But yeah, there are times when you'll hear a door slam and it startles you, or you hear a voice in the darkness and it absolutely startles you, and you just kind of you know go with it at that point. But we
Right.
find it fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Wow. And like by asking this question, I don't want to bring up like any like feelings that you may have had, but like do you remember a time where you felt like what am I trying to say? Like you were threatened, I guess.
And that's a good question. I think I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
No, the way we approach our investigations is we go in with this sense of respect, and it's a respect for the location, and it's a respect for the spirits that we're trying to communicate with. And by that, I mean the spirits that we think at one point had a human experience. They were born, they lived, they died, and for some reason they're still inhabiting this location. And so we go in and we'll say a prayer of protection before we go in, and then once we cross the threshold, we set our boundaries with the spirits. We say, here, we want to tell your story. We're here to legitimately find answers and to communicate with you. You're not allowed to touch us. You're not allowed to harm us in any way. You can touch us only if we give you permission to do so, and you're not allowed to come home with us. And I think because we give them that level of respect, we've gotten it in return. And so I can honestly say that in all of our investigations that we've done, we've never been physically harmed. We've never been threatened in any way. We've never encountered anything that I would consider demonic, even though you see
Right.
it on television shows.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really not what we've ever encountered. It's really those spirits that have a message or a story that we're communicating with, and you know it's never been an instance where we felt possessed or anything like
Right.
that. It really is about going into a location and going in with that sense of respect to tell the stories of anybody that wants to share them with us.
Right.
And like I said, I think because of that, we've had a pretty good knock on wood track record
Right.
Yeah.
of nothing really harming us or physically assaulting us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
Wow.
so based on your experience, I know you know, like telling the story, you know, that's definitely a good thing. But do you believe that all of these spirits have lived that past life? Like, you know, like you said, live this life, you know, here, you know, as, you know, you're born, you live, you know,
Yeah.
you die.
Mhm.
That's a cycle.
And some reason you
Like,
stay behind, yeah.
right. I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, what do you, I know that's a question we're all searching for, but what do you believe these spirits are, or where they're from? If they're all from here, if they're maybe from somewhere else, based on
Mhm.
just your experience, what would you say?
Okay, so for me, like I said before, I am a Christian, so I believe
Right.
I'll call the next realm heaven. So I
Right.
believe that the spirit does go to heaven after you pass, but I do think that it's not instantaneous for all individuals. I do believe that some pass on immediately, but there are reasons why some are allowed to remain closer to the veil, if you will, closer to this realm.
Right.
And there's three reasons that we really kind of go on. The first one is that they do have some type of unfinished business. You hear that in popular media, but I do think that there's something that needs to be fulfilled or something that needs to happen before that spirit can ascend to whatever's next. And for an example of that, for a very brief story, my granddaddy died in 1986, and I was after that I was extremely close with my nana, his wife, and I'm actually named after her. And so in 2006, I had gotten this, I had received this dream. I dreamt it 3 nights in a row. And it was really the first 2 nights I dreamt it. It was actually almost like a nightmare. I dreamt that my granddaddy came to me. He appeared to me in this dream and he looked at me and he made this noise and he turned and he walked out of the wall that was beside of him. And so the second time I had it, I was speaking to my mom and I said, I'm having this really weird dream about granddaddy. And just off the cuff, she said, why don't you ask him what he wants? So the third night I had the dream. In the dream, I said, Granddaddy, what do you want? And he looks at me and he goes, I'm waiting on your Nana. You're going to be getting a call soon. And then he turns and he walks out of the wall. So I told this to Mom the next morning. I said, this is what he said. And in the moment, you don't really think about that, right? Because what do you do with that information? So about 2 weeks later, we did get a call that my Nana had fallen and completely shattered her hip. And so she went into the hospital and she ended up developing MRSA and she never really recovered from it. So when she passed in hospice, about 3 hours after she passed, I looked at my sister and I said, I know where she's going. She's going to meet Granddaddy, because in the dream, the dream was depicted in a room that was in their house. And I said, she's going to go to that room and she's going to meet up with Granddaddy. And so I asked permission from my family. I said, can we go to the house? This is what I want to do. Everybody in my family said, yeah, go. And so I grabbed my sister and we had some K2 meters and we went to the house and we stood in the spot that was depicted in the dream. And we had 2 meters. One is gray and one is black. And I said, Nana, are you here? And both of these meters start indicating that there's energy on it. And I said, okay, just to confirm, stop on the black one and just light up the gray one. And it did. And I asked her to do again. I said, okay, one more time, stop on the gray and go to the black. And it did. And so through a series of those questions, I believe we were talking to Nana and Granddaddy, that she met up with him and then they ascended after that, because we went back about 2 weeks later, did the exact same experiment in the exact same spot and got nothing. And so I believe that was Granddaddy's unfinished business, right? He was waiting on Nana. So unfinished business is one. Another one is fear of retribution for the life they lived on Earth. I think that's why we see a lot of jails and prisons that are haunted. They just don't want to move on. They're very comfortable with where they're at. And they think that if they go on to whatever's next, it's going to be hellfire and damnation, right? So they're not going to move. And then the third one is that they're stuck. I think we see this a lot with children's spirits. They know that they're dead, but they can't find the way to move to whatever's next.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 theories that we work on.
Whoa. That is just mind blowing.
And each of those theories gave me a whole set of chills with it.
Yes.
It's so interesting, but I guess that's kind of like the, I don't know, scary part about it is we don't know what's that next step. Wow.
Yeah.
And it really is. And honestly, to that point, on this journey that I've been on with the paranormal, it's done 2 things. One, it has strengthened my belief that there is an afterlife, that we will move on, that we do continue. Because otherwise, if you think that you're just going to close your eyes and cease to be, to me, that would be terrifying. But so this has strengthened my belief that there is something after this. And then also, it's given me more peace, right? I mean, obviously, nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to face that reality that's going to happen. But this journey has really given me peace, that, especially the experience with Nana and Granddaddy. I think that when you pass, you're going to have a loved one there that's going to help guide you, that somebody there that's going to be recognized, that you're going to recognize, right? If you are allowed to see the light. And so, for me, while it's still scary, it's not as scary as it used to be.
Wow.
Right.
I feel like you just inspired me, because of course
Aw.
I can admit I have that fear, so
Absolutely.
you give me inspiration.
Aw.
Wow, that's so crazy. I love that. What would be your ideal piece of good hard evidence when you go into an investigation?
For us, it really is about the EVPs or the electronic voice phenomena. Finding something on video is always fascinating, and finding things on a picture or a still picture is always fascinating. But for me, there's a lot of things that you can explain that you can use to explain away a majority of those things.
Mhm.
An EVP it's much harder in my mind to debunk. And by that I mean we're like, for example, we're an all-female group. So when we go into a location and I know that there are no men present,
Mhm.
yet I capture a man's voice, that's
Oh.
extremely difficult for me to explain.
Mhm.
For example, we were at the Lizzie Borden house and there were 5 females on this investigation. And of course, this is where in 1892, Lizzie Borden is reported to have axed to death her stepmother Abby and her father Andrew
Mhm.
Borden. So when we did the investigation, the very first thing that we do when we go into an investigation is we turn on our voice recorders. So they're always running, even if we're pulling up luggage into our rooms, we've got them
Mhm.
running.
Yeah.
And so there were 3 of us upstairs still unpacking, and Jenny and Cara were sitting down in the parlor area where Andrew Borden was killed. And so they're sitting on the couch and they're just talking about the differences between the Velisca axe murder house, which we had investigated prior, and the Lizzie Borden house. And Cara said, either way, being axed to death would be a horrible way to die. And we captured a man's voice saying it was. And so I can't explain
Oh
that,
my
right?
gosh, no.
There's 2 people in the room, neither one of them said it, and it's a man's voice saying it. And I
Right.
know that there's no man on the property.
Yeah.
So that does 2 things. One, it was very intelligent, which means that this entity is listening to this conversation and responding in an intelligent manner. And two, it proves that there's something there that we can't explain, i.e., a male's voice. So for me, EVPs are probably, in my mind, the best pieces of paranormal evidence
Mhm.
that we can provide. Now, we've had some shadow figures and such, but again, EVPs are much more difficult to debunk.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that does give that good aspect of having that all all female group. So yeah, you can't doubt that was a male's
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
You can't doubt something like that. Is there closing up here? Is there a dream like place or or a goal that you guys are setting out to maybe want to investigate one day?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of places in the US, and I love US history, but I would like to go international. My very
Oh.
top of my bucket list is Leap Castle in Ireland. I would love to get to that location because, American history is fantastic and I love it, but European history just has that longevity that we don't have, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you can trace things back to the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s,
Mhm.
and we just don't have that here. And so to go to that location or really anywhere in London or in Ireland would be
Mhm.
extremely fascinating. So I'd love to get back over there as an investigator. And then the Monte Cristo plantation in Australia would be
Oh,
another
Wow.
place to go. That's it just the mystery and the haunting surrounding that.
ooh,
I'd love to get down there and investigate that location.
Yeah.
But really anywhere in the US, anywhere that has a report of a haunting or a legend or a lore. Those are places that we absolutely love to get to.
awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds so
Mm.
cool. Well, I hope one day you're able to do that.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
That would be awesome.
yeah. And then how can people reach you? Do you want to share your website and any social medias that you may have too, and how people can look more into this journey with you?
Absolutely. So the name of the group is Soul Sisters Paranormal, and our website is www.soulsistersparanormal.com. So anything you want to know about us is on there. All of the videos that we produced, as well as our series Landmarks, Legends, and Lore, are on that website. Any upcoming investigations or appearances will be listed there as well. We're also very active on Facebook under Soul Sisters Paranormal, and our YouTube channel is Soul Sisters Paranormal.
Awesome, awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely, definitely go check that out. And then closing up, last question: is there a specific message or anything you want our audience to take away from this conversation? What would it be?
I think really just kind of what we touched on earlier. The paranormal is not something that is necessarily has to be scary. It can be a journey of exploration, a journey of adventure. It doesn't have to be scary, even though popular media has really tried to sensationalize it, where the message is that everything is demonic. In our case, it is not that at all. It's something that is very interesting, and really eye-opening and profound if you really delve into it.
Wow, that's perfect.
That's
yeah,
perfect.
and that's very, very true as well. Well, thank you so much. We really enjoyed our conversation with you, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you both.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.